All right, gang. So welcome back. So we are week 3 in the semester, but week 2 of MISA. So last week we had our What is MISA info session. And then we also ended with our alumni panel last week. So you got to hear from a couple of our past alums, just talk about their experiences, where they were working, and then obviously some of the reflection on their classes and whatnot. So that was our event last week. We do have the video posted on the MISA website, so it's misafau.com. So if you weren't with us last week, you can watch that recording. So this week is kind of our sort of transition into what we would call sort of our normal session. So we'll have company information sessions one week, and then the next week we have what are called general meetings. So for the general meetings, we just talk about several different things. So sometimes we have, individuals from the Career Center come in and talk. I'll be talking with our fellow advisors about our accelerated program. Then we'll actually have a MISA Tech Talk with Danny Sementelli, one of our faculty members, to talk about some security related issues and things. So we try to kind of mix these up between company information sessions and these general meetings. So tonight we have the first company information session. But before that, before I do the introduction for our speaker, I know we kind of went through the officers and some of the others last session, but I figured it would kind of be nice to introduce some of them now. So I don't know, for some of you, if you just want to say a quick hi for the officers. I don't know if Raymond, you want to start, or Jonathan, and just say a quick hi and just tell everybody your role, and then we can do the transition to our speaker.
Jonathan, are you able to? I know you're in the middle of driving.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, hey everyone. I'm obviously driving, but I'm the president of MISA. If it's loud, I'm sorry, but
Oh, we lost him. So he's the president for MISA, and he's been with MISA for a little bit.
If it is your first meeting, welcome.
And we cut out. So, all right, we'll jump over to Raymond, so that way Raymond can introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Raymond Penuela. I'm the vice president of MISA. I pretty much I help run everything with Jonathan Rivas as well, and I'm looking forward to getting to meet more and more of you as we go on here.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Festine. I am the treasurer. I'm also training JT to be the treasurer with me as well.
Great, thanks Emily. Zach?
Hey everyone, I'm Zach. I'm the communication officer of MISA.
Awesome, thanks Zach. And then who else am I missing that I didn't see that came in earlier from our crew? And I think we have new members. So Pamelina is one of the newer MISA managers that we were just able to bring on. And then I think we see who else is on here as well. And Carice is another one. So we got 2 others that are new, and we're just getting them connected back in sort of these roles. So we appreciate having them at that particular point. So thanks to all of you for helping out MISA, and we know we're all doing this volunteer, so definitely appreciate everyone's help for that one. So now on to our guest. So maybe you've had a class with this wonderful gentleman. He's close to me because when I first started teaching, he took me under his wing and helped train me and teach me the things that I needed to know to kind of get started, especially when I didn't really know much other than just doing SI and some of the other things. He has some really great experience in IT, worked in several different areas. He's been here at FAU for a while. He also teaches several classes at the graduate level as well, adjunct. Really just a great wealth of knowledge, great personality, great person to connect with, and someone that I feel is always looking out for the student's best interest and trying to help you the best we can. So that's why we were happy to bring him on. So with that, can we give a nice warm MISA virtual welcome for Dr. Mehran, CTO from FAU.
Thank you so much for this warm introduction. I should record it and keep recording. This is so wonderful. I really appreciate it, Jonathan. I really appreciate what you did, and also want to congratulate those of you who are on the MISA board, Jonathan, Raymond, Emily, and Zach. Such a pleasure to get to see you guys. A couple of you I know Emily and Zach, but outside of those, I really am honored and humbled to be part of this discussion tonight. And when Jonathan asked me, I said I'd be happy to participate. So I'll go ahead and give you a brief background about myself, and then I get into a small presentation that I kind of put together today. Basically, I started my IT career a couple of decades ago, and my major was originally architect, but I didn't know how to draw worth anything. Since being recorded, I can't say it. So I ended up switching to mathematical sciences with the hope of joining US Air Force. And when my family was adamantly against me joining the Air Force, I went to my advisor and I said, so what am I going to do? I can't get a job with a mathematical science degree. He says, you know, you're only 2 courses away from getting your bachelor in computer science. So I got my bachelor in computer science and by computer engineering. And after that, I worked for a mortgage company writing a software package for a mortgage system. Then I decided to get a job at FAU to pursue my master's, because back then, like today, if you work on the university, they cover your degree. And as luck has it, they actually ended up not going there. I ended up going to a different university. So I worked there for a few years, and then I got a job with USAID. So I was on a contract with the United States AIDS Organization with a tour of several countries in South and Latin America doing work for US government technology work. Panama, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, and a couple of other places, Trinidad, Haiti. So it was an exciting time. And then I decided to pursue a degree, and I went to MIT, got my degree there, came back, got a job at FIU again, and then as a deputy CIO. And then around past 2000, I joined FAU. And it was one of the best career moves I made, joining this great university and great organization. So I've been here ever since. So a large number of people, ask me on a regular basis, they said, well, you stayed in one place for such a long time. I said, there are always 2 narratives about staying in a place for such a long time if you're in IT. One narrative is that you basically have no level of competency, so you have reached a place where you're so incompetent that nobody's going to hire you, so you're just staying put. The second narrative is that you feel you could make such a big difference, and you feel that you are personally satisfied, so you're not, have any desire to make a move. And I told them, in my case, is clearly is the latter, not the former. I feel I'm still making a difference, and the biggest rewarding part of my job is genuinely working with the students, because you see tangible result. You see them, grow to be successful. So our team at FAU IT department is roughly about 145 people, give and take. And a large number of our folks are actually our graduates, which is great, because not only we are basically offering them with the educational opportunity, but we're also an incubator to potentially build their career. And one of the best thing about this is that when we hire them into a full-time position, we have had an opportunity to evaluate them for a period of time. And many of them actually move through the rank and get better places, in the organization. For example, Chris Wong, who's been with me as a associate director of infrastructure and systems, he started working with me back in late 1997. He was my part-time employee at FIU. So was Wendy Wong, which happens to be, they're actually a couple. And a couple of other people that you might know. Ann Edwinson was my student in 2003. Jennifer Turner in the help desk was my student in 2006. So I have had a series of folks who've been with us. I'm just going through the names that you might be familiar with. There's so many others. There are roughly about 30 employees that actually at some point were our former student in one shape or other. So that's tremendously rewarding opportunity, not only for us, but also for the rest of the team, because these folks truly enjoy being here and they like the university setting. Having said that, our team is we're equally committed to our client, which are students. So the way we approach IT, we're not looking at IT, we're not a typical basically state entity or government agency where many people have preconceived notion that they're, inept or incompetent. Quite contrary, we are running a very agile and up-to-date team, because as a university, if we're not up to date, if we do not create an opportunity for students to come here, they will go elsewhere. So we're very cognizant of the fact that one area where we could be a better organization is through technology. So technology is clearly a major differentiator in terms of a student experience. The whole onboarding process. Many of you remember when you got your first job and the entire onboarding process, that actually defines how you view that organization. And that is one part which is extremely important, or how you got support, how you got help throughout your job. And for us, we feel that if we don't offer students the most up-to-date and easy way to do their homework, to register for courses, to pay their tuitions, to engage with other students, we're going to lose them to other universities. So to us, keeping technology relevant and keeping technology up to date, modernizing the technology is an important part of our mission. So if you tell me what's the biggest driving factor to us, is the student satisfaction and student engagement. So that's kind of puts it in perspective. I want to share with you my screen, if you don't mind. I have a couple of slides that I want to run through. I know time is limited, so I won't keep you guys up. Let me see, share screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I'll wait for you to enable it. Should I let the Chinese or the Russian do it?
So go ahead. I added you as a co-host, so you should be able to do that now.
Perfect. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Screen sharing. Can you all see my PowerPoint? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is your organization. You all can see this, so I don't want to go through this, and you have my name at the bottom. So I kind of want to put some perspective in terms of some of the stuff that I kind of mentioned to you. Our organization at IT, I'd mentioned about 140 people, give and take. In this university, like most other organizations, is heavily decentralized. What does that mean? That means there are multiple IT entities on campus. To be exact, there are 11 different IT organizations in this university. Well, is that cost effective? Is that cost efficient? You could argue that in so many levels, but the reason being is that some of those organizations have a unique purpose. They provide a unique set of skill set that we at no time or point we could be able to match or offer those. For example, College of Medicine has some unique skill set that understand how those software packages work in the college. College of Engineering has some research with Internet of Things and sensors and other type of technologies with National Oceanic and NOAA or basically US Navy that we have really no skill set to provide. Same thing with the library. Library automation system is extremely unique from that perspective. So the idea of having one organization to provide services across all verticals, as you call them, is basically counterproductive. And as a result, many large complex organizations such as financial sectors, insurance sectors, hospitals have multiple IT organizations. For many cases like oncology group or basically anesthesiology group could have their own IT in a hospital setting, just based on the fact that the requirements and the need and the type of software packages they're using are different. For general purpose computing, desktop support, help desk, it's application distribution, and we call them basically the end node, such as your desktop is basically considered to be edge device. That's the term we use. Those are all lowest common denominator. So it makes sense to use economy of a scale and combine teams together. However, as things start progressing and they become more complex, the need to create a specialized team becomes a lot more paramount. So this is why a large number of organizations adopt this. Of course, people who are sitting at the top always look at dollars and cents and they say, well, are we going to save money if we combine? And we all continuously make the argument that it's really not about funding, it's mainly about providing the level of service that's required. And also, like all other IT is kind of very difficult to measure in terms of the IT success. Many of you have encountered IT organizations, and your basically perspective or viewpoint is based on the person you have been in touch with. So you may have called the company, let's say you dealt with Dell Compaq or Microsoft. Compaq is not even around anymore, but I just threw the name out there anyways, or HP, which is also in the merge, losing a lot of money. And your interaction about that company is based on the person that you talk to. And then you hang up the phone and say, my God, this is the worst company on the planet. Or if the person is nice, says, oh my God, they make the best product. But the truth is that that person only defines one aspect of that company. Dell has 165,000 employees. The person on the call does not represent all features that Dell offer, but clearly they're representative of the organization. So in many cases, you basically view the organization through that narrow lens. We all do as humans. As a result, it's extremely important to build KPIs, which is called key performance indicator of how you measure organizational success. Some look at it based on projects, some look at it based on the number of calls, resolution to the call. Some look at it based on the turnover, if they have less turnover. There's a whole host of ways where organizations build their key performance indicators when they're looking at how successful they are from the IT delivery perspective. Our projects currently are basically enormous. We have 240 give and take active projects. Of course, some of them are probably, we're not going to get to them in a few years, but some of them are we're pressing forward. One is modernizing our network. We are looking at increasing the network on campus to 100 gig connection. We currently have a sustained 10 gig connection. Pre-COVID, our usage was about 7 gigabit continuous, in which around 3 gig give and take was Netflix. With kids in the dorm, we're getting quality education, Netflix. Since we have gone to remote teaching and remote learning, the number has dropped to about 2 gig give and take. But we know as soon as we're back fully in session and fully in person, that number will jump up to a significantly higher number. So we're in anticipation of that. We actually built a dark fiber between us and Davie, Nova Southeastern. And from there, we're jumping on the same fiber cable all the way to Miami. And there, from there, we connect to the rest of the state, all the way to Atlanta, a place called Southern Crossroad. From there, we're going all over the country. Atlanta is a huge hub for network aggregation. They call it Meet Me Room. So one of the projects is to go with this 100 gigabit network. The second thing we have done, we're almost in a process of completing it, is all buildings on campus are now benefiting with 10 gig network. These are sustained 10 gig synchronous, meaning both sending and receiving. And basically is a lot better than what most people get at home, because at home it's inconsistent, there's a burst involved, whereas on campus that is not an issue. Another thing we're doing, we're replacing all the phone systems on campus. We're going with fully voice over IP with a VoIP system, and the traditional analog numbers are gradually being phased out. And the reason we kept the analog numbers, because the phones were inexpensive. We had them for such a long time. There was no compelling reason to change that. We are also upgrading the Wi-Fi network. We have about close to 4,500 access points on campus. So you can imagine every year we replace about potentially 1/4 of those access points, which is roughly about 1,000 access points, just because they get old and then they're in an exposed area, so they get rust. Particularly, we're close to Ocean in Boca Raton campus. So as a result, there's an ongoing project to do that. And of course, this whole notion of 5G network, we have already built the infrastructure to support 5G through AT&T on campus. And we're working with other providers to bring that service to the campus as well. I'm going to talk about that later on. I just want to bring that up, that a large number of folks have this hype about 5G network. And 5G network is only going to work if, number one, your device is 5G ready, and number two, if your courier delivers 5G in that area. And the answer to those questions is that unless you have the latest version of iPhone, which is iPhone 12, or you have a Samsung S21, anything before that, you're not getting 5G. You're getting 4G on steroids. It's basically a huge marketing gimmick. 5GE is not 5G. It's just the best marketing that AT&T could present to you. So just be very cognizant of that, that everybody says, oh, I have a 5G phone, or you have a 5GE phone. That little E at the end is basically them telling you, we're just fooling you, but we don't want to tell you. A couple of other areas where we feel there is a tremendous need is coming out of this COVID, we are now looking at a hybrid work schedule model. We feel that some of our employees are exceptionally productive working from remote, which wasn't the case perhaps before. The notion of somebody working from remote wasn't even, we had it here and there, it was one-offs, but now we're seriously entertaining having developers work from home. The only challenge you have is when you have DevOps team, which is this next generation of basically application development. Some of you may have heard of it. We went from project management, which is traditional waterfall, one stage to another stage, going to the agile, and now it's called DevOps, which you get the development team and the operational team together to basically build the product. This absolutely increase the efficiency and also shorten the time that an application takes to hit the market. This DevOps business requires people to work in a team. It also requires people to collaborate. So when they're remote, there's a challenge because if part of the people are in the office and part are remote, it's going to become some level of challenges. So we feel that the hybrid model of having people come to the office maybe once or twice a week and then working from remote is probably going to be a happy balance. Some companies have already noticed that the idea of bringing employees back is actually a sound idea, at least part of the time. All large companies such as Google, Facebook, Oracle have all committed, YouTube have all committed to bring the people back probably by July or no later than September. And in fact, they all have announced one by one that if employees do not want to come back to the office and want to work from remote, and if they have moved out of California, they are those companies are going to adjust the employees' salaries based on the state that they live in. So the cost of living adjustment will kick in, which means a lot of them will be looking at significant pay cut because the dollars and the cost of living in California is significantly higher than Utah or Nebraska or Iowa or Idaho, where many of those programmers may have moved, or Nashville or Austin, Texas. As a result, you're going to see that folks are going to start looking at some sort of hybrid office visit to work with the folks, and then other time basically work on their own remotely. As far as the internship goes, we as an institution, we actually offer internship. We work through Dr. Denev to set those up, and they're paid internship, and they basically conduct a project with us. And at the end of that period, we complete the form for them. And the number of internship actually varies depending on how many people are interested. We normally have between 1 and 3, depending on how things progress. We are absolutely open to the idea of internship at any time. And many of those folks actually end up working for us at some point through different means, whether part-time or full-time. So I believe it's a great opportunity to actually see how we function, because what we do is no different than what our large IT organizations actually provide. The services are very similar in so many levels between the help desk services and desktop support and networking, security, business intelligence, predictive modeling, database administration, application development, learning resources. I could go on and on, enterprise resource planning. So the whole host of things we provide are very comparable to what outside companies actually do for us. Now, one thing is also equally important. Unlike outside companies where people are very much siloed into specific area skill set and their skill set grows, here we're very cognizant of the fact that people could actually get tired of doing the same thing. So we provide the opportunity for folks to work on different projects. And we challenge folks, because all of us that are in this business, I serve on a bunch of boards. It's not like my skill set is only tied to what I learned in this university. I sit on Forbes Council of 1,000. These are the 1,000 IT people around the country, including Zuckerberg and Larry Ellison. All those folks are on it. I serve on board of Northwest Regional Data Center, which is in Tallahassee. It's the largest data center in the state of Florida. I'm the chair of that policy board. I sit on Miami Electronic Crime Task Force, which is the United States Secret Service electronic crime unit that combats anything fraudulent online, like credit card fraud, banking fraud. So you learn a lot of information through those organizations. So we encourage our folks to participate in outside organizations to actually learn from each other. And one of the things that I'm so grateful for Dr. Sweet for running, being at the helm of MISA, is the fact that you guys collaborate and you talk and you learn a lot. And then you build those relationship with each other. You cannot put any price on the relationship that you build with your colleagues, whether your classmates or potentially future employer, because a large number of folks, like there always people say, what's the difference between going to FAU and any Ivy League? Yeah, I went to Ivy League, my daughter went to Ivy League, my son went to Ivy League, big deal. Doesn't mean anything. The only thing you get out of it from those places is the connection. We could be as good, we are probably education-wise, we're as good as any of those universities, hands down. The only difference is we are not promoting as much as we should people that are in position of authority and hiring to recruit more of our people. And that is absolutely important. So if you have a job, if you work in a company and there's an opening, feel free to reach out to one of us, Dr. Sui, or someone say, hey, there's an opening in my company. We feel it's going to be great for another FAU employee. You know, uplift your colleagues. And this is how all those large universities have been so successful over the years, is basically the network of alumni that they have built to support new graduate or other folks from moving between organizations. And I think that is really the key for us moving forward as an institution, to build that strong alumni network and have our alumni really reach out and mentor folks who are just graduating, students who are looking for an opportunity. And that is, you can't put a price on it. That's the single biggest value that we could bring to the table if we could accomplish that. So now switching gear, I want to make sure I'm not going over my time. Just kind of have about 3-4 minutes. I kind of want to talk about some of the stuff that are going on, which you guys will actually appreciate. So since COVID, South Florida has become a major hub of technology. So a large number of companies opted to move out of Northern California post-COVID, partially because they said, well, our employees are not here, we might as well just move. So Austin, Nashville, and Miami are the three major hubs that companies are moving to. So currently there are 57 startups in South Florida. A big portion of them are in fintech. Fintech is financial technology sector. And out of those 57, 3 of them are unicorn. And unicorn, for those of you who not know the term, is a company that has raised $1 billion in venture capital. That is enormous. Organizational transformation to use digital technology is everywhere. Companies are now hiring a large number of folks to basically do this. So then the number of IT positions right now, this year we had a net gain of 59,000 positions nationwide. A large number of them are around digital transformation, doing things online, banking sector. Look at, I mean, the whole notion of retail banking is basically passé. Who's going to a branch anymore? So for example, you think about BOPIS, which is becoming such a big area. Many of you know what that means, correct? Buy online, pick in store. That term is becoming so popular. And of course, you already know curbside pickup, blah, blah, blah. Companies had to ramp up their infrastructure to support that. They also had to build logistic behind it. So everything that the company had to do, all had to be done through technology. Look at Grubhub, and all these companies are doing so much better. This area, I just have a publication I want to share with you from Tulio. I was actually on a call with them yesterday, and they shared me this white paper they had done. And they said any company that has actually gone through digital transformation, their stock in the past year has increased on average 275%. So they had done a complete study of retail shops that have gone through digital transformation and how well the return on investment is working. Another area of growth is AI. Everybody talks about AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We are in the infancy of this. There is a lot more to go. You know, people say, what's the best approach? If you really want to pick up something around AI, I would say look at Python. Just understand a little bit of concept of Python. That would be great. The low-hanging fruit of AI is writing bots. Like when you contact Amazon and the automated thing shows up, or when you contact Bank of America, Erica shows up. Those are the areas where there's going to be a tremendous growth, and there's more to come. Automating some of those calls, and then of course you tie that to voice recognition system, which we call it voice economy, between Alexa, Cortana, OK Google, and Siri. That area is going to continue to grow for the next 7 years. When we talk about sensors and Internet of Things, there is a tremendous growth because homes are becoming smart. cities are now adopting Internet of Things, and we call them smart cities because you're looking at sensors on street lights. You already have those sensors in Publix where shopping is a pleasure. I'm sure you've been there. And then they have sensors on, basically they're gonna have on trash cans, so only will pick up trash that is actually showing green, or they're already doing that in some cities. The street lights, traffic control, subway, parking. You already have so many different mobile apps that every time you want to park in a different part of South Florida, you have to get a different app. All of those are tied into the smart cities, and the area of investment is growing. 911 systems are going through complete transformations. There are currently 6,500 counties in the United States, and practically more than 80% of them are on need to upgrade their 911 system because it's tied to the old analog. And now they need to have a different ways to contact people, because whenever you call 911, they have to triangulate and find your location. So a large number of 911 systems, the counties are actually looking at Uber, as how Uber can pinpoint you to a specific location to do that. And now they're building predictive modeling. Many cities are already parking basically ambulances in specific area or fire truck based on the number of calls that is coming from a specific region. New York City is already doing that. And they're using analytics, they're using business intelligence and predictive modeling to see where the next call comes in. We already know about RFID and the 5G, which is next generation, G is for generation, is going to dominate. But the only challenge we're going to have with 5G is that there's going to be a massive infrastructure that has to be built, but it's not here. Because 5G is a high intensity transmitted technology, which requires a lot more antennas. So every 2, 3, 4 miles, you need to have some sort of booster. And that is going to cost a massive amount of infrastructure and funding that providers need to provide. As a result, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint are no longer building their own tower. They're leasing space from other companies, either existing buildings or these tower providers, to boost up their signal. In the last minute, I just want to quickly talk about 1 minute, talk about what happened with Robinhood game. And I'm sure some of you already heard about this. The whole notion is now software packages on mobile devices that are actually turn the table on a large number of hedge funds. And the hedge funds were basically controlling the stock market. Suddenly you have smaller players that utilizing mobile technology, mobile software with social media to buy stock for companies that were basically in the verge of either going bankrupt or their stock being practically worthless. And as a result, they are attacking those companies, buying their stock, driving the price up, and it's driving the speculators crazy. It's getting to a point where stocks that normally supposed to be trading at $50, $40, $60 are going for like $200, $300. As a result, there's going to be some litigation, some adjustment to the way the game is being done. I personally think they should let it ride because these hedge funds have been doing this game for a long time, and now these people are coming and beating them at their own game. So be it. But I'm not a lawmaker. The only good news is that this is another example of how low-hanging fruit technology is changing the way market is delivering. We call this a disruptive technology. So Robinhood is clearly a disruptive technology that's impacting how market is being driven. And many of you already know Facebook and Apple are going to go at it. And I believe Facebook is going to lose because Apple new privacy law in version 14 will kick in very soon, which means every single app that you install or you currently have will ask you whether you want that information to be sent. And if the answer is no, this will immensely impact Facebook because Facebook no longer can collect information on your behavior based on your shopping habit or app browsing or places you visit. As a result, they will not be able to sell you targeted ad, which we refer to it as a macro behavior. Their macro behavior strategy and application is going to shut down. They're estimating that 50% of their revenue will be lost if they lose this feature. Apple is playing hardball. Apple will turn around and sell this to Facebook at an exorbitant amount of money. We believe very soon Google is going to follow suit with their new version of Android beyond 12, probably like 13, will have that feature built in. So the two operating systems are clearly dominating the market in so many levels. So if you tell me what's the biggest challenge with the technology field, is what Apple and Google decide to do. It's not Facebook, it's not Twitter, it's not Instagram, it's what Apple and Google collectively decide to do. They totally control all the pull strings in the market. So this is pretty much what I had. I want to keep it on time. I have another presentations about the cloud and everything else, but for the sake of time, I'm really going to stop and get engaged in any questions you might have. And I tried to talk as fast as I could, given the timing. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So
yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Mehran. We
my
appreciate
pleasure.
that. That was great. So as he mentioned, we're just going to open it up to Q&A. So if you have some questions, you can either pop your mic on and pop it off, or if you want to write in the chat, we'll do our best to kind of keep an eye on that, and then I'll get the sign-in sheet going back in. So take it away, whoever has the first question for Dr. Mehran.
I got something.
Sure, Will.
So for me, since I'm like very interested in Linux, I was just wondering what and how does Linux, or what and how does FAU use Linux for their infrastructure?
Excellent question. So our investment in Windows and Linux is practically in par with each other. In fact, a large number of services we currently provide have underlying Linux infrastructure. And Linux is going to be here for foreseeable future. And being a Linux system administrator is extremely popular and very difficult to find somebody who's good at it. So if, for example, you go through the network registration system, like when you first time you build a device, that is developed on Linux. So a large number of our servers are still running Linux at the back end. In fact, when you go to your registration system, the registration system, which we call it MyFAU, and from there you go to the banner screen, all Linux-based, they're all Linux. Linux is still the dominating operating system for two main reasons. One is extremely scalable, and two, it's easier to build container, because what you could do is you could actually build on top of it with a much easier process versus Windows, where it's a lot of point and click. Scripting is a little bit more draconian because of the nature of the software trying to keep it easy. And also Microsoft likes to have a uniform environment. So if the application hasn't developed on Microsoft, it has much tougher time running on a Microsoft environment, whereas it's so much easier. So for example, think about the web services we offer. They're all on Linux. I mean, I can go through countless number of apps that you use on campus that are Linux-based. Our entire research strategy, all the research systems, they're all on Linux. If you go to any of FAU clinic, the software they use on all the clinics, they're all Linux-based. And in fact, Canvas itself is Linux, based on Linux portal, even though it's contracted. McGraw-Hill is built on Linux. So I can go through a large number of those. And in Zoom itself is running on top of Linux. It's not a Windows-based platform. It's still the dominating operating system when it comes to scalable environment.
Okay, that's actually really good to know. I'm actually trying to get more and more into Linux itself. Even before, like, I knew it was very scalable and you could do all this, just like using it, it's just a good thing to use. Hell,
Yeah.
like when I'm doing schoolwork on Windows, it sucks. I'll admit it.
So let me kind of tell you something about education, which a lot of people actually always ask me. When you are actually going through school and you're learning, what we teach in school are called just-in-case education. We build you the ability to learn on your own. If you want just-in-time education, that's vocational. This is not a university. Vocational is a skill set you get, and in 2 or 3 or 4 years is obsolete. The university strategy and the university philosophy is to make you a critical thinker. And you are already, because you're already asking the right question. So I do not foresee any problem you actually learning Linux or any future product on your own. In fact, I didn't recommend you guys taking a course on Python. I said you can learn it on your own, because the fact that you're at this stage of your educational journey is a clear indication that you have already built a level of aptitude and self-discipline to learn any new product. And this is why people hire people with a degree. It's not about their skill set, it's about their ability to learn and to be analytical. And that is kind of the key differentiator between folks who go through the educational process on vocational side versus those who go through the traditional academic side. And I believe you're going to be perfectly okay. So my suggestion, if you have an old computer or not, build one, throw Linux on it. And it doesn't have to be Red Hat. It could be CentOS. It could be Ubuntu, any of those, and start downloading apps and get into, if you're a gamer, build your gaming machine on Linux and see how well it actually performs.
Actually, I've used Linux for almost like 3 to 4 years now, so I'm pretty well aware with it. I use it for almost like everything in my where I am now.
Excellent. That's a really good sign, because Windows you could always learn on your own if you don't. I mean, especially Active Directory, DNS, and those things on Windows are relatively self-explanatory. It doesn't take a lot of basically brain cell to use some of those features. But Linux requires some level of thoughtfulness, because one wrong script could totally mess up everything.
True. And does the university provide ways for us to learn Linux, like a Linux club, perhaps?
I do not think we do have a Linux club. I believe a large number of those who have learned Linux have either learned on their own or they have gone online to one of those courses. And the only reason you would take the course is because it disciplines you to participate in some group activities. But as an institution, we have not. In fact, we have had maybe countless number of system administrators, probably like 5 or 6, that came in from the Windows side. And by the time they left, they were all new Linux, just because the job required them to learn it on their own. So sometimes your job will require you start with X, and then suddenly you have to manage a system that is running on Linux and you have no choice. And it has been happening here a lot. I mean, every single Windows administrator that we have that manages Windows infrastructure, whether it's Active Directory or DNS or any of the other Unix, Windows services, already knows Linux. Also, one more thing is learn a scripting language, whether it's PowerShell or anything else. That's extremely useful, because Linux is heavily scripting based, command line. So understanding scripting will be very useful for you.
All right, thanks, Dr. Mehran. Thanks, Will, for the question. So does anyone else have any other questions? So Cindy, you said you have a question on BI.
Yeah, I have a quick question, just because this is my second to last semester, and I'm kind of interested to go towards that path. And I'm sure other people are interested as well. I saw that SBA Communications posted a business intelligence opportunity, to apply during the summer. And I think they have another one coming up in April. So whether the FAU or other, people may offer this position, what do you recommend for us to, focus on, since I'm kind of new to the subject?
Excellent. That's a very good question, Cindy. Well, welcome. Thanks. So when you're looking at BI is actually now becoming a very interesting global term, if you will, that encompasses so many different things. So to become a true business intelligence, you have to first and foremost understand how the data structure is put together. It doesn't have to be in a database. It could be in an Excel spreadsheet. So the notion would be the number one thing to understand is data structure. Understanding how databases are put together is equally important. So whether, as Microsoft SQL or any SQL, generic SQL is very valuable, because when you pull the data in to do BI work, you have to bring it from somewhere. And sometimes you have to bring it from multiple sources.
Right.
So being able to understand data structure, as we call it, data dictionary, that's kind of the generic term, is first and foremost. So if you were going to read anything, because when you take a BI class, they give you a data set and they assume that you're going to pull it from Excel or something, but just go one level deeper. Understand how companies put their data structure together. What is hierarchical database?
Yeah.
All those things become such an important part. Then when you move to the next level, at the BI level, my recommendation is start playing with Power BI. There's a free version of Power BI available to every student.
Yes.
Definitely get to know Power BI, because when you go to an interview for an entry-level job, you need to bring something to the table. Whether it's Power BI, whether it's Tableau, those are the two top products. There's also SPSS, but I wouldn't go that far. Then there's also SAS, and then there's Business Object. But Tableau and Power BI are becoming the two dominating products in the market. And when you are also going through that stages and when you're talking about them, there is one other area where Power BI, the business intelligence is now becoming extremely prevalent, is non-structured data. As we call it sentiment analysis. What's a sentiment analysis? Is going through text, like picking up all the hashtags in, for example, Twitter, or looking at all the posting of someone might have in a social media, like extracting data from social media to do sentimental analysis. Companies are very much now focused on that because a lot of the surveys they send out or a lot of the data that they have is not necessarily structured. So then understanding non-structured data is equally important. So as you're going through your educational journey, my suggestion is to pick up information on products such as MongoDB. Most of you may not have heard of MongoDB. MongoDB is a database and it supports non-structured data. And that's the product that Google, for example, uses. eBay uses MongoDB. Amazon uses MongoDB. This is for like all the comments that they put at the bottom because those are non-structured field. So when you go out there, you really want to become a triple threat, understanding the database, structured database, understanding one of the tool sets, and understanding non-structured data, which we call it basically for sentiment analysis. So having those high-level knowledge, it's good enough because once you get there, all companies will put you through training because there's no way you know their data. So it takes probably between 6 months to a year for you to become fully embraced into that area. We just hired somebody about less than a year ago. His name is Corey. He's such a good kid. He had no experience in BI. He had done a couple of dabbling in BI, and now he's one of our finest business intelligence, reporting person for predictive modeling. And the thing that really enticed us about him was because he knew about non-structured data, and we found that to be extremely valuable.
Got it. That's really good. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah, look at MongoDB or any other they call them NoSQL. Because remember, like when you're doing a search in Google, it's not a structured search. You don't say select where name is equal X, Y, and Z, location is that equal. You don't do that. Come on, correct? You just type it in. You say, give me the closest Italian restaurant in Boca Raton near me.
Correct.
That's that. So that's sort of where the non-structured data comes in. And also there's one other area where when you go through the interview throughout there that you actually understand about false positive. For example, if you do an analytics on the data in university, which we do, actually suicide prevention is a major concern on most universities. And one of the things that they do, they go through, posting of social media to see who has used a specific keyword. Many kids actually put there, oh my God, if I fail this exam, my mom is gonna kill me. Or no mom is gonna kill their kid. But the mom has killed me, or the word kill me shows up. And of course, this is entirely a false positive, correct? Because it's just an expression. That means my mom's gonna be mad at me. So then they have to throw all those out. So it's kind of an interesting when they do those analytics. Or also business intelligence to this day does not understand sarcasm. And there's a lot of people who put sarcastic stuff. So when you get there through your interview process, talk about the need to find mechanisms to take care of the outliers, which are the false positives.
All righty.
Really good. Great question. Thanks, Dr. Mehran, for that one. So other questions from any of you out there? So we'll hold off on your other one to give some other students some opportunities as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dexter. Yeah.
So what are some of the things that the security team does to prevent threats or like monitor potential risk?
Excellent. So some of you might know Danny Simontelli. He's probably one of my best hires ever. Love Danny. He's a good kid. The things we do is really, we call it, the first thing we do is called the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is actually dual. Many of you use it's called multi-factor authentication, or for short, MFA. Having multi-factor authentication, if somebody spoofs someone's account, which happens on a regular basis, and picks up somebody's password, they can do a lot of damage. Why? Because they need to have access to their device. So this is one area where we continuously pushing that product. One couple of other things that we do, our security team is continuously monitoring phishing attempts. The latest that we had recently has to do with free COVID vaccine, where you could pay for it, and it's really a hoax. It's legitimately a great phishing attempt, where they send people email and say, sign up here, put your credit card, and we'll give you access to the vaccine. So to start robbing people of that things. So the security team does that. They also do the maintenance on the basically on the firewall. They also do maintenance on VPN. Those are the two major products that the security team runs on a regular basis. Then one other thing that they do, they look at all the logs. We don't sit down and read every log. freaking log because it's impossible. No, we don't sit down and see where people are going. We look for patterns when there's an attack, where is it coming from? So for example, there was a period of time for almost 3 weeks that we literally disabled all traffic coming from Nigeria. I mean, those princes and princesses were so disappointed that their letters weren't making it to us, those chain letters. So, and then of course we had to open. So they are continuously monitoring, trying to take active role in that. Two other things that they do. One, we have a training, it's massive training process. So if you have taken any security class, it's called SADA, remember, Security Information Training and Awareness. SADA, its concept is something that's important to us. So we offer training on a regular basis. We're not as strict as some financial institutions where bank actually will send a fictitious memo to employees through email, and the employees will click on it because it's basically a phishing attempt, and they masquerade, or we call them impersonation. They impersonate the president of a bank, and then they send a note, and if somebody clicks on it, then they know it's basically that this employee needs to go through training. So they force them to go through training. We don't do that level of basically rigid practices, but they are continuously offering training services. We tell people not to change your password on a regular basis, and don't put it under your keyboard, stuff like that. One other area that they're heavily engaging is basically the annual recertification of systems. So for example, one of the areas that they're always concerned is, what if somebody walks through an office and says, oh, I'm here to fix your system? People are so nice. Somebody walks in, they might just let the person right through. If it looks right, dressed properly, has a shirt, they don't check the ID, nothing, because they're just people apply. So many cases, this social engineering is a big part of it. And also we do attempt from outside, like random, basically ransomware attack. We go through those exercises. We go through exercise of trying to break into different systems. They do that on a regular basis. It's called scanning. You scan all the ports to see which one will open up, and continuously systems grow that. They also check to make sure all the machines have all the patches up to date. Because remember, when a patch comes out, it's called zero-day attack. By the time the patch is released, every hacker knows that that patch is fixing a problem that previously existed. As a result, they're going to start attacking computers that potentially might not have that patch. So this is why we continuously encourage people to install patches as soon as it comes out, because it's fixing a vulnerability. So that's another thing they do. They continuously scan systems that do not have those patches. Our team is about 5 people, and they're really good at what they do. So it's finally, they're gelling really well together. We're very proud of that security team.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Dexter. Good question. Thanks, Dr. Mehran. So we got time probably maybe for one more question. So anyone else? Will, we may have to put yours on hold, just give a couple other students an opportunity to put their questions. So anyone else questions for Dr. Mehran about IT, about, possible, like he said, about the internships, just general questions like you talked about. We talked about analytics, we talked about security. So other things that we can ask Dr. Mehran.
So I'll wait, but if there's no additional question, I kind of want to run something by the whole group, because I think they would appreciate it, but I'll wait to see if there's no other questions.
I think we're good, so.
Okay, so one other area of technology, which everybody hears a lot about, and everybody sounds saying, oh my God, these companies taking their services to the cloud. Cloud services, cloud this, cloud that, cloud, all this other stuff with the cloud. And one of the challenges that many companies face is they sign a contract with one cloud provider. They soon realize that, oh my God, the prices another cloud provider might be less. So they need to move their data from cloud A company to cloud B. And the egress charges is extremely exorbitant, because companies charge you to take your data out, even though it's yours, but they charge you for the network processing. So that becomes cost prohibitive. Today, a large number of organizations are doing something called container management. Container, or called microservices, you break your services into smaller container, like one service, one product, if it's a single VM, and then you move it between different organization. And that's called the multi-tenant management, and it's becoming extremely popular. So many system administrators' job today is morphing into managing multiple tenants in the cloud. If you have 1 minute, I put something quick together I want to share with the team, just some of the terminologies that are so popular with this. Just quickly, let me do that. Share my screen. Here we go. Bear with me. Let me get out of this quickly. Okay, let me bring it up. I just want to kind of go through this quickly for your, you might find it. So this term macroservice is becoming extremely popular. The term macroservice is basically putting everything under one area. So you could move it from one cloud company to another collectively as one entity. And then we have this term that is becoming very popular called container, which is the macroservice inside. It's part of a macroservice is a container. So for example, Netflix absolutely has done a great job with this. Netflix runs on Amazon Cloud, AWS, and has thousands of services, different part of the country, different movies. So everything is in a different container. And your username and somebody else's username might be running on two different environments, VM, virtual machine, because you have different interests and they could give you different type of movies. So their business analytics is entirely built around the premise of having microservices across the board. How do you manage these thousands upon thousands of microservices? We use products such as Docker. So many companies now are saying, do you understand Docker? Do you understand containers? Just having understanding of that is extremely important. If you're going between multiple cloud providers, then we have other type of environments that we're using. So this kind of gives you the whole idea, VM is virtual machine, of where this technology is going. This is going to continue to grow. And there is a white paper by Netflix that I highly encourage all of you to look at, our slightly technical of how they actually have done a great job with high availability. They have microservices that are copied to different places. So if New York area goes down or Northeast, they could run it in another part of the country. And they actually are the gold standard when it comes to containerizing their entire infrastructure. And the last thing I want to show you is this other product that's becoming, is called Kubernetes, or Kubernetes for short, is if you have multiple cloud environment and multiple microservices in multiple clouds, how do you manage that? You use a product called Kubernetes, which is very extensive, versus having Docker, which is in one cloud environment. And if you have multiple of those Docker, we call it Docker Swarm. So now if you go through any environment for an interview and they say, do you understand cloud? These are the terms that they use. Macroservice, container, Swarm, and Kubernetes are the four key terms that are being thrown out there. Just want through that technical detail in there, because outside of your basically building relationship with me, so I felt that having a little bit of a technical background on this is important. But then outside of that, you have something called API, and I'm sure many of you in your courses have come across the term application programming interface. It's a little software that connects that. So the bottom right, if you look at it, this is exactly what Netflix has done. So everything you see is all their different services on the right-hand side, and then there's a gateway that brings it to your client, whether it's your TV or mobile device or whatever it is. That is kind of the foundation behind how the technology works. And there's one little term at the bottom called CDN. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. A large number of companies cannot deliver services to that massive number of consumers. They contract with Content Delivery Network. One of the largest in the country, for example, is Akamai. And what Akamai does is basically host your site. So let's say you want to broadcast 5,000 movies at the same time. How are you going to do it? You basically use CDN companies to do that. Facebook just got into this business. That's kind of their next venture, is to allow CDN as one of their services. Amazon started already. So there are a couple of them, but Facebook was surprised to all of us that they want to get into this business, because if the business model is going to change, they felt this is going to be a good area for them to engage. But anyways, I just want to throw that out there. Let me stop sharing my screen. I had put this together because I know how relevant it is when people talk about cloud technology. And I'm really not trying to impress anybody with a technical piece, but it just kind of felt it was something worth throwing out there.
No, that was great, Dr. Rana, and I think everybody appreciated it, because you just really brought some real world application to say, hey, these are students that are going to be hitting the job market soon. These are some things that you see as someone on the other side of the desk that you look for when hiring IT professionals. So if they don't have these.
Exactly, John. They don't have to know it, but as long as they know what it is. Mm-hmm. Like if I, when I look at it and said, so do you know what's a Docker? They think that's the place you park a boat. No, it's not sure. Like, it's like one of those things. And what's a container? Oh, it's the shipping container. We bring things from China,
Exactly.
So yeah, some of those things that are just knowing the terms are equally, I think, important, if nothing else, so that you could say, look, I don't know it, but I'm willing to learn. I know enough about it to be dangerous.
Yeah,
that's another thing that many people use. But again, if you go to an interview, you don't have the answer, don't make it up. Because those people are sitting at the other end, see through that. Don't lie, because then you have to do it. Say, I don't know enough about it, but I'm willing to learn. That answer, oh my God, goes with me a long way. I've hired about 1,500 people in my career, roughly. And that answer always, always, always resonate with me.
That's great. So thanks so much, Dr. Mehran. I know we're right here at the time, so I'll go ahead and stop the recording.